This message today is for those who feel trapped in delay. For those who keep saying, I'll fix it when I feel ready. We're going to break that cycle. We're going to expose the lie of tomorrow. And I'm going to show you how to reset your spirit today, even when you feel broken, even when you feel too far gone. Because the truth is, you don't need another day to begin. You just need another decision. Let me talk to somebody today who keeps waiting for a better day to begin. You've been saying it for months now, maybe even years. I'll start tomorrow. You've got dreams you've buried under the soil of someday. You've got prayers you keep postponing because you think the right time will somehow appear out of nowhere. But here's the truth. Tomorrow is one of the biggest illusions the human heart has ever believed in. Tomorrow is a shadow we chase but never catch. Tomorrow is comfort disguised as control. We think if we push things into the future, we're in charge. We think if we wait long enough, clarity will come, courage will come, healing will come. But my friend, waiting for tomorrow is how many people lose their destiny. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you to stop you. All he needs to do is convince you to wait. He knows if he can't take your faith, he'll take your focus. If he can't break your passion, he'll delay your purpose. He'll whisper, you've got time. Don't rush it. You're not ready yet. And you'll believe him because it sounds reasonable. It sounds patient. It sounds wise. But what it really is spiritual paralysis wrapped in the language of patience. You're not waiting on God. You're waiting on a version of yourself that doesn't even exist yet. See, we love the idea of tomorrow because it permits us to stay the same today. We say, I'll forgive tomorrow, so we don't have to face our bitterness right now. We say, I'll start healing tomorrow, so we can keep nursing the wound tonight. We say, I'll fix it tomorrow, because we're afraid of the confrontation today. But every time we delay obedience, we make disobedience our lifestyle. And every time we say, not yet, we train our hearts to live in hesitation. The Bible says, boast not thyself of tomorrow, for you know not what a day may bring. That means stop assuming the next sunrise is guaranteed. Stop living like you've got an unlimited number of mornings. You don't. Every breath you take is borrowed. Every moment you waste is a seed that could have been planted. Every delay is an opportunity you may never see again. You don't lose life all at once. You lose it minute by minute, excuse by excuse, delay by delay. Some of you are praying for new beginnings, but God is waiting on you to finish something He already told you to start. You're asking for open doors. Time to pray, but you haven't walked through the last one. You're praying for clarity, but you haven't moved on the instruction He already gave you. You say, Lord, show me the next step. And God says, I can't, because you haven't taken the first one. You're waiting for confirmation, but heaven is waiting for commitment. The illusion of tomorrow is dangerous because it looks like wisdom when it's really fear. We tell ourselves we're being careful, we're being smart, we're being strategic. But what if you're just being scared? What if you're calling your fear patience? What if your hesitation is just dressed up as discipline? Because I've learned something in my walk with God. He doesn't need you to have all the answers before you move. He just needs your yes. He doesn't need you to feel ready. He needs you to be willing. You see, faith was never meant to wait for certainty. Faith creates certainty through movement. When Abraham left his home, he didn't have the map. He just had a word. When Peter stepped out of the boat, he didn't know how to walk on water. He just knew who called him. And when Jesus went to the cross, he didn't wait for applause or assurance. He went because it was his purpose. That's what faith does. It acts today. It obeys today. It trusts today. Because waiting for tomorrow is a luxury you don't have when your calling is on fire. Some people say, well, I'll start when things calm down. Let me tell you, things may never calm down. The storm may not pass before you move. Because sometimes you've got to start building the ark while it's still raining. Sometimes you've got to step forward while it's still dark. You can't wait for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is now. God never told you to wait for peace before you move. He told you to move and let Him give you peace along the way. I want you to think about how many seasons of your life you've lost to the lie of tomorrow. How many times did you have the opportunity to grow, to rebuild, to begin again, but you told yourself, not yet? How many prayers have you postponed because of pride? How many relationships have you ruined because of reluctance? How many dreams have you buried because you were waiting for a feeling that never came? Because that's the weight of tomorrow. It robs today of its power, and then it steals tomorrow's promise before it even arrives. Tomorrow becomes a prison when you keep pushing your purpose into it. You don't realize you're locking yourself away. You tell yourself you're being cautious, but really you're being confined. And while you wait for perfect conditions, your calling is decaying. You're waiting for the light, but God is saying, I gave you a lamp, use it. You're waiting for a guarantee, but God is saying, I gave you grace, trust it. You cannot walk into divine timing while you're chained to human timing. God moves outside of calendars, outside of clocks, outside of your plans. You're the one living by schedules. He's living by faith. And if you want to experience His power, you've got to step into His timing. Now, you've got to stop saying, when I'm ready, and start saying, I'm ready because God is with me. There's a reason the Bible says, this is the day the Lord has made. Not tomorrow, not someday, this day. That means this day is sacred. This day is divine. This day has power. Every sunrise you see is a reminder that God still has something for you to do today. He woke you up for a reason, not to waste it thinking about the next one. You may be thinking, but Pastor, I'm tired. I'm not motivated. I'm not strong enough yet. And that's exactly why you've got to start now. Because your strength is found in movement. Power doesn't show up before the step. It shows up after. The miracle doesn't happen while you're waiting. It happens while you're walking. You don't feel ready before you begin. You feel ready because you began. Waiting for tomorrow is like standing on the edge of a promise and never taking the leap. You'll spend your whole life talking about potential, but never experience transformation. You'll live surrounded by possibility, but die in the desert of postponement. And that's not what God called you for. You weren't made to live in almost. You weren't designed for someday. You were created for now, because the moment you stop waiting and start walking, heaven starts moving. When you decide that today is enough, doors begin to open, opportunities begin to align, strength begins to rise, and peace begins to return. Not because tomorrow finally came, but because you finally chose to live in today. You've been thinking the future holds your freedom, but your freedom is already in your hands. It's in the decision you've been too afraid to make. Because God, it's in the conversation you've been avoiding. It's in the apology you've been delaying. It's in the dream you've been doubting. You don't need another calendar page to change. You just need courage in this one. The illusion of tomorrow keeps you busy, but never fulfilled. It makes you feel safe, but never satisfied. It promises you comfort, but steals your calling. And every time you say, I'll do it later, the enemy smiles because he knows later usually means never. So stop waiting for better timing, for the right feeling, for someone to tell you it's okay to begin. Because the truth is, God already told you. You just haven't believed Him yet. You don't have to wait for the pain to end. You don't have to wait for the storm to pass. You don't have to wait for tomorrow. You can reset your life, your heart, your purpose today. Because the greatest lie ever told is that there's still time. The greatest truth you'll ever discover is that time is already here, right now, and it's waiting on you to decide who you'll become before it runs out. Let me tell you something about the God you serve. He doesn't need your calendar to work His miracles. He doesn't wait until the first of the month to bless you, or until January to renew your strength. God doesn't need time to fix you. He needs your trust. And that's what the power of the present reset is all about. It's about understanding that you don't have to wait for life to slow down, for your pain to fade away, or for your situation to look better before you begin again. You can reset right now, right where you are, in the middle of the mess, with the pieces still falling apart. Because when God is in your moment, that moment becomes holy ground. We think a reset is something that happens after everything breaks. We think it's something that happens at the end of failure, when all the damage is done. But what if I told you the reset is not just for broken seasons? It's for any season you feel stuck in. The reset isn't about starting over. It's about starting different. It's about shifting your mindset from when to now. It's about saying, I may not be where I want to be, but I refuse to stay where I was. You see, God is not waiting for a perfect version of you to show up. He's waiting for the honest version. He's waiting for the real, raw, unpolished you. The one who's tired, the one who's been doubting, the one who's been hiding. Because it's only when you come to Him as you are, that He can reset who you are. You don't clean yourself up before you return to the Father. You come home covered in dirt, and He washes you Himself. That's what grace does. Grace doesn't wait for your performance to improve. It meets you in your weakness and says, let's begin again. So many of us delay our healing because we think we've got to earn it. We think we've got to pray harder, read more, fix more, try more, and achieve more. But you don't earn a reset, you accept it. The power of a present reset comes when you stop striving to fix what's broken and start surrendering what's broken to the one who knows how to make all things new. You might be standing in the ruins of your decisions right now. Maybe you lost something. Maybe you failed publicly. Maybe you feel like the pieces of your life are scattered beyond repair. But the good news is this: God does His best work in broken places. When He formed the world, He spoke light out of darkness. When He formed man, He made beauty out of dust. When He redeemed you, He brought life out of death. So what makes you think He can't build something out of your brokenness? Resetting doesn't mean you ignore your pain. It means you invite God into it. It means you say, Lord, I can't change what happened yesterday, but I can give you my today. Because transformation doesn't start with understanding everything. It starts with surrendering everything. And once you surrender, God can shift your direction, change your focus, and rewrite your story. We often think we need a new season before we can start fresh. But what if the new season begins the moment you decide to obey? The moment you say, I'm done running, I'm done waiting, I'm done making excuses. The moment you make that decision, the reset begins. Not next month, not next year, but right now. Because the power of a present reset isn't in the timing of your situation, it's in the timing of your obedience. Let me remind you of something. When the prodigal son was sitting in the pit bin, He didn't wait for the farm to get clean before he went home. He didn't wait for his clothes to be washed or his reputation to be restored. He said to himself, I will arise and go to my father. That's a reset. That's the moment everything changed. He didn't plan it for tomorrow. He decided it today. And the Bible says that while he was still far off, the Father ran to him. That's how God meets you when you choose to reset. He doesn't wait for you to crawl back slowly. He runs towards you with open arms because your decision to move releases his power to restore. And that's the key. Power is released when you decide to move. The power of God doesn't show up in your planning. It shows up in your stepping. It shows up in the moment you say, I'm done being stuck. I'm done replaying what I can't change. I'm ready to live again. Because every reset begins with one act of courage. The courage to stop rehearsing the pain and start rebuilding the purpose. Maybe you've been telling yourself you'll start again when things get easier. But let me tell you something. Easier never comes. Life doesn't slow down for your healing. It doesn't pause for your progress. You have to reset in the middle of the chaos. You have to find peace in the noise, faith in the confusion, hope in the heartbreak, because the God who created you doesn't wait for silence to speak. He speaks even in the storm. When you say, Lord, I'm ready to reset, you're not saying, I know how. You're saying, I trust you to show me how. And trust is where transformation begins. Because when you trust God enough to move again, even in your uncertainty, you create space for Him to do the impossible. That's when doors start opening that you couldn't open yourself. God doesn't waste pain. That's when opportunities appear that you couldn't see before. That's when your strength returns in ways you can't explain. The power of the present reset is found in surrender, not control. It's found in faith, not fear. You don't have to know what's next. You just have to know who holds next. And when you remember that God is in control, you realize that nothing you've lost is beyond His reach. He can reset your direction, reset your desire, reset your destiny, all in a single moment of obedience. So many people wait for the perfect environment to begin again. They say, I'll change when my job changes. I'll start healing when they apologize. I'll grow when the world becomes fair. But if your reset depends on external conditions, you'll stay stuck forever, because real change doesn't start around you. It starts in you. The power of the present reset begins when you say, I'm taking ownership of my life again. I'm not waiting on someone else to set me free. You may be in a dark season right now. You may not see the end of the tunnel, but sometimes the reset begins right in the darkness. Because the darkness is where God reveals His light. The place you thought was punishment becomes preparation. The place you thought was the end becomes the beginning. You may not feel it yet, but God is rearranging things beneath the surface. You may think you're standing still, but heaven is already shifting in your favor. When you reset, you're not denying what hurt you. You're deciding it won't define you. You're not pretending the pain didn't happen. You're choosing to rise above it. Because faith doesn't mean ignoring the storm. It means trusting that the storm has an expiration date. Every season of suffering carries a hidden seed of renewal, but that seed can't grow until you plant it in the soil of now. That's the secret. The power isn't in the plan, it's in the present. The change isn't in the waiting, it's in the deciding. God has already placed everything you need for your next season inside this one. But as long as you keep reaching for tomorrow, you'll miss the strength He's giving you today. The same grace that sustained you yesterday is still available right now. Not when you fix it, not when you deserve it, but when you believe it. And that's what makes this reset powerful. It's not dependent on circumstances, it's dependent on faith. You can be in the middle of loss, confusion, heartbreak, and still say, Lord, I choose to start again. Because sometimes the reset is not about changing your situation, it's about changing your spirit. When your spirit resets, your perspective resets. When your perspective resets, your purpose resets. And when your purpose resets, your life begins to move again. You've got to stop waiting for signs that it's time to change. The fact that you're still breathing is your sign. The fact that you woke up this morning means God hasn't given up on your story. The fact that your heart is still beating means your purpose is still alive. You don't need permission to begin again. You just need to believe that God still works with broken pieces. Because the same hands that shaped creation can shape your chaos into something beautiful right here, right now, in this moment you call today. Let's talk about the two enemies that have stolen more destinies than failure ever could. Delay and doubt. They walk hand in hand, whispering the same lie over and over again. Not yet. Not yet. You're not ready. Not yet. Doesn't waste pain. You're not strong enough. Not yet. You don't know enough. Not yet. You haven't healed enough. And you start to believe them. You start to live your life in a constant state of postponement, always preparing, never progressing, always waiting, never walking. That's how the cycle begins. The cycle of delay and doubt. It's quiet, it's subtle, and it looks innocent. But make no mistake, it's deadly to purpose. The truth is, most people don't fail because of a lack of ability. They fail because of hesitation. They have the talent, they have the gift, they have the dream. But they keep second, guessing themselves until the moment passes. You've done it before. You've had that spark, that idea, that opportunity, but something inside of you said, wait. And by the time you talked yourself into it, the door had already closed. Delay and doubt are master thieves. They don't rob your resources, they rob your readiness. We often think doubt sounds like fear, but it doesn't always come screaming. Sometimes it comes disguised as logic. It sounds like, maybe I should wait until it makes sense. Or maybe I should pray about it a little longer. But there's a difference between waiting on God and God waiting on you. And too many of us are blaming heaven for our hesitation. We say we're waiting for confirmation. But the truth is, we're waiting for comfort. God doesn't always confirm through calm. Sometimes He confirms through conviction. He puts a fire in your spirit that won't let you rest. You can try to ignore it. You can try to silence it. But it keeps stirring inside you because God is saying, I've already called you. Why are you still standing there? Every moment you delay, your faith decays. Every time you wait for certainty, you're saying to God, I don't trust you yet. The Bible says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And that's what doubt does. It divides your focus. You start walking in faith one day, then walking in fear the next. One moment you're confident, the next you're questioning everything. You start something strong but never finish it, because the voice of doubt always drags you back. It tells you you're not qualified. It tells you you're too late. It tells you no one will care. And the longer you listen, the louder it becomes. But let me remind you, doubt is not a signal to stop. It's a signal to strengthen. Every time doubt shows up, it's because destiny is nearby. The enemy only attacks what threatens him. So if you're hearing that voice that says, you can't do this, that's proof that something powerful is waiting on the other side of your obedience. The devil isn't afraid of your intentions. He's terrified of your actions. As long as you keep thinking he's safe. But the moment you start moving, his plans start breaking. Delay is dangerous because it disguises itself as discipline. You tell yourself you're being careful, you're waiting for the right time, but what you're really doing is feeding your fear. You say, I'll do it when I have enough money. I'll do it when I have enough confidence. I'll do it when I have more support. But what if none of those things ever come? What if God is waiting on you to step before He supplies? Because provision doesn't come before purpose. It comes when you pursue it. God doesn't fill the jar until you start pouring the oil. Every time you delay, you teach your heart to distrust. You tell yourself, maybe it's not time, when God already said, now is the time. You start thinking, maybe I'm not the one, when God already said, you are chosen. Delay keeps you looking at what's missing instead of trusting who's moving. You can't wait for perfect conditions when you serve a God who works in impossible ones. And here's the thing, doubt doesn't only come from your mind, it comes from your surroundings. Because if you're constantly surrounded by people who question everything God is doing in your life, you'll start questioning too. That's why you've got to protect your atmosphere. Not everyone deserves access to your vision. Not everyone can handle your faith. Because some people will always see the mountain, others will only see the mustard seed. You've got to decide which one you'll listen to. When God called Moses, he said, Lord, I can't speak. When God called Gideon, he said, Lord, I'm too small. When God called Jeremiah, he said, Lord, I'm too young. Every one of them doubted themselves, but God didn't change his mind. Because your doubt doesn't cancel his decision. He already factored your weakness into his plan. He already knew your fears before he called your name. And yet, he still said, go. The longer you delay, the heavier it gets. You start feeling the weight of regret. You start wondering what could have been if you just trusted earlier. And regret is one of the hardest prisons to escape because it's built on what you didn't do. But let me tell you, regret is not your home. You don't have to live there anymore. You can break that cycle right now by choosing movement over meditation, obedience over overthinking, faith over fear. You see, the cycle of delay and doubt works like this. You feel the pull to act, but you hesitate. You hesitate long enough that you start doubting. You doubt long enough that you start feeling unworthy. You feel unworthy long enough that you stop trying. And once you stop trying, the enemy whispers, see, I told you nothing would change. But if you interrupt that pattern even once, if you move when you normally freeze, if you speak when you normally stay silent, you break the chain. And once the chain is broken, momentum begins. The key to breaking the cycle is not waiting for doubt to disappear. It's moving despite it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's obedience in the presence of it. When Peter saw Jesus walking on water, he doubted himself, but he still stepped. And the moment he stepped, what was impossible became possible. That's the lesson. God doesn't eliminate the storm before he calls you. He calls you to step in faith through it. Every step you take weakens the power of delay. Every act of obedience silences the voice of doubt. Because faith doesn't argue with fear. Faith walks past it. Faith says, I don't have to understand, I just have to trust. Faith says, I don't need to see the whole picture. I just need to take the next step. Sometimes the greatest spiritual warfare isn't against demons. It's against your own hesitation. The battle is in your head. The war is in your words. And the victory is in your choice. You can't think your way into freedom. You've got to step your way into it. You can't pray for courage and then stay still. You can't say you trust God and keep delaying. At some point, your faith has to have feet. You've got to tell yourself, I will not die in delay. I will not drown in doubt. You've got to remind yourself that obedience today is greater than intention tomorrow, because delayed obedience is still disobedience. And every time you put off what God told you to do, you're saying, my timing matters more than yours. But when you choose to act now, you're saying, Lord, I trust your timing over mine. Breaking the cycle of delay and doubt requires confrontation. You've got to confront those inner voices that say, you'll never make it. You've got to confront that insecurity that says, you're not enough. You've got to confront that comfort that keeps you where you are, because comfort and calling don't coexist. If you want to walk in your calling, you've got to step out of your comfort. You've got to do it afraid, do it unsure, do it trembling, but do it anyway, because every time you move in faith, heaven responds. Every time you act in obedience, heaven aligns. God doesn't reward hesitation. He rewards faith. The miracle happens not when you think about it, but when you take the step. The blessing flows not when you plan it, but when you walk in it. The breakthrough doesn't come from what you feel, it comes from what you do. Delay and doubt lose their grip when you stop listening to your limitations and start listening to your purpose. You are not what you did, you are who He called you to be. And He didn't call you to wait. He didn't call you to wonder. He called you to walk. You can't conquer what you keep postponing. You can't overcome what you keep overanalyzing. You can't win battles you refuse to fight. The cycle breaks when you decide enough is enough. When you stop negotiating with fear. When you stop praying for signs that have already come. When you stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And start declaring, what if it does? Because what if the very thing you're afraid to begin is the very thing that changes your life? What if your next step is the one heaven has been waiting on all along? Delay says, tomorrow. Doubt says, maybe. But faith says, now. And the moment you start living in, now, everything around you starts to move. Because God doesn't anoint hesitation, He anoints action. He doesn't bless waiting on fear, He blesses walking in faith. And as long as you keep choosing movement over misery, you'll keep breaking the chains that tried to hold you back. Every day you wake up, you're stepping onto a battlefield. You may not see swords or shields, but make no mistake, this is war. The moment your eyes open, the fight begins. The battle for your focus, the battle for your peace, the battle for your mind, your heart, your purpose, and your faith. And the enemy knows that if he can't destroy you, he'll distract you. If he can't make you evil, he'll make you busy. If he can't break you with sin, he'll break you with silence. That's why today, not tomorrow, not next week, but today is where your victory begins. We often think spiritual warfare is only about demons and darkness, but sometimes it's about decisions and discipline. It's not always a loud battle. Sometimes it's the quiet war between who you were and who you're becoming. Between what you feel and what you know is right. Between what's comfortable and what's called. Every day, the enemy wants you to forget that you are in a fight. Because if he can make you passive, he can make you powerless. You don't fight this war with fists or words. You fight it with awareness. The Bible says, be alert, for your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. That means he's watching your habits. He's studying your weaknesses. He's waiting for moments when your guard is down. And that's why today is so critical, because if you're not grounded in purpose, you'll get pulled by pressure. Every day, the enemy tries to plant seeds in your thoughts, seeds of doubt, seeds of fear, seeds of comparison. He whispers, you're not enough. You'll never make it. You should give up. And if you don't fight those thoughts today, they'll grow into strongholds tomorrow. That's why you can't afford to ignore the battle happening in your mind. The war is not always around you. Sometimes it's in you. You can't wait for Sunday to start fighting when the war is happening on Monday. You can't rely on yesterday's prayer to fight today's temptation. You've got to armor up daily. You've got to speak truth over your fears before your fears start speaking over you. You've got to remind yourself every morning, I am not fighting for victory. I'm fighting from victory. Because Jesus already won. But you've got to walk like it, talk like it, and believe like it every single day. Some of you are wondering why life feels so heavy. It's because you're trying to fight a spiritual war with natural weapons. You're using logic to fight anxiety. You're using distractions to fight depression. You're using people to fill the void only God can fill. But the Bible says, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. That means you can't win this fight through strategy alone. You've got to win it through surrender. Every day, there's a battle between your flesh and your faith. Your flesh wants comfort. Your faith demands courage. Your flesh wants control. Your faith requires trust. Your flesh says, later. Your faith says, now. And whichever one you feed is the one that wins. You can't starve your spirit and expect your faith to stay strong. You can't feed your fears and expect peace to survive. You've got to choose which side of you wins today's war. The reason today is so powerful is because it's the only battlefield that's real. Yesterday is over. You can't fight there. Tomorrow hasn't come. You can't fight there either. The only place you can win or lose is right here, right now, in this moment. Every choice you make today, every thought you entertain, every action you take, it's part of a spiritual war for your destiny. When you wake up and decide to forgive instead of holding a grudge, that's warfare. When you choose prayer over panic, that's warfare. When you speak life instead of complaining, that's warfare. When you decide to keep walking even when you feel tired, that's warfare. Every time you choose light over darkness, obedience over comfort, and faith over fear, heaven stands with you, and hell trembles because you chose to fight back. But let me tell you, the enemy doesn't always attack with pain. Sometimes he attacks with pleasure. He'll tempt you with shortcuts, with comfort zones, with opportunities that look like blessings, but are really distractions. He'll offer you the easy way out, just to keep you from the path of discipline. Because the devil knows if he can't make you fall, he'll try to make you stop. He'll try to wear you out, to make you doubt, to make you forget that your steps are ordered even when your surroundings are uncertain. That's why you've got to stay spiritually awake. The moment you stop praying, you start drifting. The moment you stop listening to God, you start leaning on yourself. And self-dependence is the first step toward defeat. You can't win today's battle with yesterday's strength. You've got to refill daily. You've got to renew your mind daily. You've got to armor your heart daily, because this isn't a one-time fight. It's a lifestyle of warfare. When Paul said, put on the whole armor of God, he didn't mean for decoration. He meant for survival, the belt of truth. Because lies will try to pull you apart. The breastplate of righteousness, because guilt will try to break your heart. The shield of faith, because doubt will try to pierce you. The sword of the Spirit, because sometimes the only way to silence the enemy is with the word. You can't go into today's war unarmed and expect to come out untouched. The reason many people feel defeated is not because God isn't fighting for them. It's because they've stopped showing up for the battle. They've surrendered their will without realizing it. They've allowed their emotions to become their generals, their fears to become their strategy, their comfort to become their commander. But you can't conquer what you refuse to confront. You can't claim victory if you never show up on the field. You've got to show up even when you're tired. You've got to show up even when you don't feel like it. You've got to show up even when you've failed before, because victory doesn't belong to the perfect. It belongs to the persistent. The enemy doesn't fear perfection. He fears progress. Every time you show up again, you remind him that his plan didn't work. Every time you keep believing, you prove that his lies couldn't break your faith. Every time you keep walking, even with wounds, you remind him that grace still wins. Today is a battlefield because every choice determines the direction of your destiny. You can choose to live defeated or to stand in dominion. You can choose to let your emotions lead or let your faith lead. You can choose to react in fear or respond in power. The victory is not waiting for you in the distance. It's waiting in your decisions. You may not feel strong enough to fight today's war, but strength doesn't always feel like shouting. Sometimes strength looks like getting out of bed when you don't want to. Sometimes it looks like forgiving one more time. Sometimes it looks like praying when you don't feel anything. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just steady. It's the quiet confidence that says, I may not see it yet, but I know God's still working. That's the kind of faith that wins battles. The faith that doesn't wait for evidence. The faith that believes before it sees. The faith that knows today's pain doesn't mean tomorrow's defeat. The faith that refuses to let doubt sit in the driver's seat, because the enemy's greatest weapon isn't destruction, it's distraction. If he can keep you looking back at yesterday or worrying about tomorrow, he's already won. But when you focus on today, when you say, this is the day the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and fight in it, that's when everything changes. The power of today is that it's all you have, but it's also all you need. God gave you breath for a reason. He gave you time for a purpose. He gave you this moment as an opportunity to stand, to fight, to believe again. Every breath you take is proof that heaven still has plans for you. And every time you choose to stand firm today, even in the smallest way, you're advancing the kingdom. Because today's battlefield isn't just about surviving. It's about claiming territory. It's about reclaiming your peace, reclaiming your joy, reclaiming your focus, reclaiming your faith. Every time you choose not to give up, you take back ground that the enemy tried to steal. Every time you pray when you could have panicked, you push the darkness back. Every time you forgive when you could have hated, you break the enemy's chain. That's why you've got to treat every day like a battle for your destiny, because it is. The war is not against flesh and blood. It's against doubt, delay, distraction, and fear. And every time you win the battle within, you start winning the battle around you. You can't wait for tomorrow to fight. You've got to fight now with everything you've got. Because if you don't claim it today, the enemy will. So now, I want you to pause and let this truth settle deep in your spirit. You don't have to wait for tomorrow to reset your life. Tomorrow is a myth the enemy uses to delay your destiny. Everything you need to start again, to rise again, to walk in power again. It's already inside you today. The clock hasn't disqualified you. The failures haven't defined you. The mistakes didn't cancel you. You're still breathing because God is still building. Today is not ordinary. It's divine. It's the day heaven gave you to reset your mind, to realign your purpose, to reawaken your faith. This is your moment to stop surviving and start stepping back into dominion. You've got the authority to break the cycles that held you. You've got the power to silence the voice that told you, wait. You've got the right to declare, I start over now. Stop waiting for perfect timing. There's no such thing. Stop waiting for permission. God already gave it. Stop waiting for a sign. You are the sign. Every time you decide to rise, heaven rejoices and hell panics, because it means you finally see what was true all along. The same God who called you yesterday is still with you today. This is your battlefield, but it's also your breakthrough ground. Don't let fear talk you out of your freedom. Don't let regret hold your worship hostage. Stand up right where you are and declare that today. Not someday, not eventually, but today. You reset. You reclaim your peace. You realign your focus. You restart your life with God's power fueling your steps. Because the real miracle isn't in tomorrow's promise. It's in today's decision. And the moment you decide to move forward, heaven starts moving with you.